now prescribe clear guidelines on how to deal with them, some of them very mundane, including measures such as lockdown, measures such as physical distancing, and of course, sanitization and wearing masks. And there are those who hold the view, number one, that lockdown is a prescription that is being made to African countries, which we are adopting lock, stock, and barrel without looking at our specific circumstances. We now know, for example, that in Tanzania, the president and the government has adopted a different approach, holding the view that while it is wise to adopt measures such as closing schools and other facilities, but they have taken the view that they are not going to adopt a complete lockdown. We have seen such measures being taken in Burundi, and we know that in Burundi there'll actually be a general election next week. And we also know that Sweden and Taiwan and South Korea are also adopting these approaches that are different from the norm. We have seen the ideas of people such as Chukuma Soludo, who have argued that Africa need not adopt this approach simply because it is prescribed by WHO and is essentially Eurocentric and American-centric. And the question on the table from an expert such as Professor Cyril, who is a professor of genetics and animal breeding and is much more conversant with these as we are, is what can we do differently to win this battle? And it is now quite clear to us, if only to ask three foundational questions. One, is it not true that this pandemic will be with us for a long time? Two, is it not true that our economies are being devastated by these approaches that we have taken? Three, is it not true that indeed it would appear that this particular virus does not thrive as virulently as it is in Europe as compared to the tropics, and that therefore it should be environment specific and country specific and region specific? And in that context, I think we can then debate, led as we must be by experts in this area, such as Professor Cyril.
Professor Cyril.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can.
Good. How are you, Prof? And I want to welcome everybody. I will quickly attend to the issue of lockdown. Like I've told several persons on several occasions, I continue to wonder when lockdown has become a drug component. Just a minute. I wonder when lockdown has become a drug to take care, for example, of a viral infection. Because when you say lockdown, in terms of interpreting conditions given by World Health Organization, which was I think it was misinterpreted, because when you say social distance is different from physical distance. And lockdown comes from either social distance or physical distance. So let's look at the two components. If you say physical distance, then you must be aware of what distance you must keep to each other. And for COVID-19, we know they started with 10 feet. And I continue to wonder how human beings can maintain 10 feet apart from each other. If you are outside of your house, then you try to maintain it. When you come back as a family inside the house, what happens? So everybody will now have to buy a tape rule to start measuring 10 feet. Later, it was reduced to 6 feet. Of recent, it has been reduced to 2 feet. The implication is this. Now, one, I want to believe that even the World Health Organization and SCDC and all of them don't even understand what they are implementing, because social distancing cannot be human, because there must be human interaction. People must talk, people must visit each other, people must relate with each other. I will give an example. In my state in Nigeria, you discover that markets can move from market to school compounds, either secondary school or the question now is this: if you move a market from the normal spot or the normal environment and you move it to a school compound, and the women carries all their items, even the movable shades and all that, does it now change the orientation of a market, no more being a market? So social distancing is a punishment, because one, I feel that they are trying to keep everybody indoors to achieve whatever they want to achieve outside. Because virus, if we assume virus like COVID-19 exists, is it not possible that virus can enter the house? Because there are windows to homes and there are doors, and air moves. Because from all indication of what they have been telling us, COVID-19 is more or less even airborne, because it's respiratory. So I don't understand why close down is a factor or is a measure in terms of curbing a virus infection or a viral infection. That is number one. And they have mentioned that it's going to be long time. I have been questioning them. When I say them now, I'm talking about World Health Organization, NCDC, and CDC. There are informations that we don't have. Because for you to give conditions, I want to believe that you must know what is affecting the people before you give conditions, before you prescribe symptoms that people will observe. I want to believe that. Because in science, there's nothing that is new. You came out with conditions. You came out with symptoms. Out of those symptoms, you are giving preventive measures where social distance comes in, which they have transcribed to lockdown.
Professor, I hear you.
That lockdown is implemented.
Ambassador, are you in?
And I want to use.
We're losing him a little bit.
Yeah, nothing. So lockdown varies from. Yeah. Yes.
Ambassador, I think you have laid the foundation. I would want the good ambassador. You've identified by way of question.
Hello.
Ambassador, Professor, I
Yes.
think you've laid the foundation stone and posed the question, which is not rhetorical. And you are wondering, among other things, why we think that the magic solution to fighting COVID is this lockdown. I would want to hear the preliminary remarks of those other colleagues who are in this forum. Honorable Ambassador, could you say something by way of preliminary remarks?
Good evening, Prof. My take is this is a very specific and professional issue. And if I want to give my remarks, I'm going to give coming from a common sense because I'm not a doctor. What I was actually wanting from Professor Cyril is to educate us what is really COVID-19. Is it real? And if it's real, how do one contact it? We haven't gotten clearance on that. What we are having all through the conversations, both on media and all over the world, is this conspiracy theory that none of us up to date can really say we can lay hold on it. Nobody knows, is COVID real? Some have the notion that you can't contact it, it's not airborne. Some say it's airborne, so there's a lot of confusion. So for me as a person, what you said in your introduction is if COVID-19 really exists, which I know there is something out there that is killing people, we don't know what the reason is and actually what is the real way to contact it. From what Professor Cyril said in one of his interviews way back, is that we have not even been able to do an autopsy to say that these people that are dying there is due to COVID. Until we're able to establish that fact, it's really very difficult for anybody to prove a solution. But what I'm going to say, based on what we have seen, is that if COVID indeed is real, which a lot of people think that it's real, and if it's airborne or we can contact it, the common sense is for us to use what's for us. It should be country specific. It shouldn't be what's going on in America should apply in Africa. What's going on in London should apply here. But that everybody should actually use our common sense to preserve ourselves. But when there were a lockdown realization in Nigeria, you saw people trying to caution the social distance and all that. But from what Cyril is saying, he's actually saying there is no need for social distance. And my question then is, what do we need to do? For me, I'm taking my precaution based on the little knowledge we have had out there, that there is a disease or there is something out there, it's a killer thing and it's killing people, which we don't know. Professor Cyril seems to differ from that. But until we know that there are facts that this thing is not killing people, I'm going to take personal precautions to keep the social distancing that they're saying, to make sure that for me, what I do, I try to take a lot of warm water, take a lot of, that's what I do even before now. So for me, it's not a problem. I take the ginger and lemon every morning in my water. So what I'm going to say to us, until we define exactly what is COVID-19, what are the causes? Are there causes? Are there cures for it? Let's try the best we can to maintain, use our common sense to safeguard ourselves and our families.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very useful intervention. Engineer, are you in? Because when you listen to a number of African leaders, save for the president of Tanzania and the ministers of Burundi, you get the feeling that many African leaders are simply mimicking, and this is a very harsh word that I'm using, mimicking what the president of the United States of America is doing, or what is happening in Italy or in Spain. And I would want to hear from the engineer, for example. Engineer, are you in the house? Engineer? Or Dr. Ongile, are you in the house? Or we can go back to Professor Cyril.
Prof,
Yes, Prof.
Sorry, Prof, before we go
yes,
back.
Yes, Ambassador.
I would actually want Prof, because one of the reasons why I'm on this platform is I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist by any means. Professor Cyril, based on some of the interviews you have held that I have listened to, you seem to actually, you're on the notion that this thing going on is not COVID. That's one. Secondly, it is not airborne. Could you please tell this house exactly what's your opinion? What do you think is going on? What do you think is killing people? Because I know people are dying. We don't know what. So do you happen to have an idea based on your experience, on your expertise, what is actually going on?
Thank you very much. The question speaks for itself.
Yes, Prof, I expected that question, and I will give it my best approach.
Hey, I'm on a Zoom meeting.
And
I'm on a Zoom meeting. I'll talk to you, okay?
Number one, at the beginning of the
Professor Cyril, we seem to be having a problem with your connection.
I think if we all muted, let's all mute and allow him to speak.
Yeah, are you getting me now? Am I clear? Is network.
Keep right, someone.
Hello.
Proceed, Professor Cyril, we can hear you.
Okay, good. From the beginning, a pandemic was declared. And from that day, symptoms were given. If I leave my house and I visit a medical doctor, before I will leave my house, I feel that I have health conditions because I am not feeling the way I was feeling the previous day. If I get to a medical doctor, the medical doctor will ask me questions. How are you feeling? And whatever information I'm giving to him will build up what we call symptoms. Then the doctor will weigh the symptoms, and based on his training in class or in the university as a medical student, he will be able to collaborate or correlate those symptoms I have given to now suspect an ailment. Then from there, if he's not too convinced, then he will ask me to go for a laboratory analysis to confirm his suspicion. So World Health Organization gave symptoms of what you will feel when you are infected with COVID-19. So what I did was to weigh those symptoms and track such symptoms when it enters the body. Remember that up till now, World Health Organization has not given any direct clue of what that virus is. But the only clue they gave, which made me to challenge them, was that they gave genetic information about the said virus. That number one is a living organism. And I challenged them, I said, no virus is living. If a virus is living, one single virus as a living thing, no human being will be on earth. Then that has suppressed that issue of whether it is a living thing or not. Because you cannot tell me that something that is outside the body is not living. We enter the body system, absorb cells, absorb genes, and become a living thing. And that was why I quizzed them, and I said, what of the stones inside the gizzard of the farm? Why have they not been able to acquire cells and genes and become a living thing, a fowl, and jump out of the system? So if you take the symptoms that we have been giving, if you correlate it with mercury as a virus, you will discover that they match 100%, which is number one on one side. Because one, there is no health conditions that flies out of the sky. There must be history of an ailment in terms of virus, in terms of protozoa, in terms of bacteria, or even fungi. So since we don't have the origin or the basic information to what the virus is, but they have classified it as a virus, that was what led me to look at possibilities of what could form virus. I, as a geneticist, know quite well that viruses are man-made to satisfy basic purposes and desires. So if you take your Google and look at mercury as a virus, you will see the symptoms somebody will express when he or she is infected with a mercury sample or a mercury component called virus. Because mercury per se, when it enters the body, it acts as a virus. And what does virus do when it enters the body? It destroys the cells because they are foreign. And they have chemical and properties. So as they are destroying the cells, the body is reacting to the cells. So when you weigh each of those symptoms, it will lead you straight to mercury infection. Then that covers one part of what was given to us, because World Health Organization in their explanation said when it is outside the body, it is a non-living thing. When it enters the body, it is a living thing. So I separated them. outside the body as a non-living thing, check what mercury is. Mercury as a virus, check what it is. Then when it enters the body, I am trying to track them from the way they are saying it. It acquires the cell and the gene, which is not possible, and become a living thing. So I now took it as a living thing. And when you look at the symptoms given, enter into Google again, chlamydia pneumonia. When it affects somebody, what are the symptoms? It's 100% to COVID-19 symptoms. So I, as a medical doctor and attending to my patient, I have gotten the symptoms of what that patient observed in his or her home before the person came to my office. Based on those symptoms, I have diagnosed that suspiciously that person or my patient is suffering from COVID-19. COVID-19 in two forms. COVID-19 outside the body as a non-living thing, mercury infection, and inside the body as the living thing, as chlamydia pneumonia. So I want everybody to check symptoms of chlamydia pneumonia and mercury as a virus. And if you enter also to find out the diagram of a mercury as a virus, then you will see COVID-19 picture. So try it. And check out when that picture was designed. It wasn't yesterday. It was before the announcement of the pandemic. So nothing is strange, because if diseases are meant to live with man, because man as a genetic component reacts with environment. There is interaction between genetic factors and environmental factors, and that's what makes the organism. So we cannot say that a pandemic situation that did not even pass through epidemic situation, we have accepted it, fine. Let's assume it's pandemic, because they were able to always predict. Just imagine a viral occurrence or a disease condition that is predicted by persons who are not even scientists. They don't have any medical training. They don't have any virological training. No kind of health training. But they're able to predict that this pandemic, this COVID-19 virus, will affect all African countries. And today we are beginning to see that it has engulfed all African countries. Maybe one or two left, if I am being corrected. Fine, because Madagascar that we thought we would use as an example, I just saw some publications this afternoon that Madagascar has gotten one death from COVID-19. So which means the prediction that it will go around the whole world, it will go around all African countries, is achieved. So there are more questions than the eye could see in terms of COVID-19. So if you relate those symptoms together and check out the treatments for those symptoms and for those health conditions, we are looking at mercury as a virus entering the body, inside the body, through the nose, and goes into the lungs. There are drugs you use, and they have been on counter, which means it's not a new event for mercury to infect people. Then, if you look at chlamydia pneumonia, there are treatments for chlamydia pneumonia. And if you look at statements from those who have gone to isolation, they are treated and they are classified now cured, and they come out. If they tell you the story of what they were treated with, it points straight to malaria treatment and one or two drugs from chlamydia pneumonia added to basic malaria treatment. So why are we scared? Malaria is not new. Malaria is as old as humans, and it's endemic. Then if you look at mercury infection as a virus, viruses have been produced severally. And I continue to tell people that coronavirus is not new because it has a patent right. Patent right was issued to Wuhan lab to study and produce coronavirus. This is not the first time they are producing viruses. Even America is not the first time Americans are producing viruses. And if you trace well the history of chlamydia in America, the treatment for the past 50 years or plus is by inclusion of mercury as a virus to treat another virus. That's how they explain it. You create a virus to treat another virus. So mercury was being used. Yes, I will give references to some of those things in my next publication, in my next discussion, so that I will give publications that people could go open it and read it. And you see some of those basics. So those were the factors I put together that led me to some of those conclusions that I have. Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think you've teased out a number of critical issues that we who are non-professionals in the area can now relate to. The Honorable the Ambassador, do you think that some of your concerns have now been addressed and that you are the reacher in terms of understanding how this COVID is? Or you think there are follow-up questions? And I open it up to anybody who has a contribution or questions to ask of the good professor. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ambassador.
All right, Chairman, sorry. What I still need, knowledge is a powerful thing. And as far as I'm concerned, I cherish knowledge. Like I keep saying, there's so much confusion, there's so much conspiracy theories out there. Prof, the last statement you made was, you're talking about that the treatment so far was the treatment like they use for malaria. My question is, what do you think, in specific terms, do you think that COVID-19 exists? And if it exists, is it the name they are giving it? Is the source correct? Because if you now say that the treatment they are using is a malaria treatment, therefore COVID does not exist, it might be confusing, it might be kind of scary too, because malaria was not killing people in London and killing all these people in Italy and Europe. This is happening around the places that we never had anything about malaria. In your own time, this is to help us, because this forum is just to help educate us, and also in case when we're talking to people to know how to address the issue. A lot of people trust us and our words are very, very strong for certain people. I want to know from your own understanding, what is there something called COVID or COVID-19 or coronavirus? And if there is, what it is? What is it? Or if you think that the name is wrong, what do we have killing people all around? And what do you think is the remedy? How do you think people should be careful? In as much as I've heard you say that social distancing and all that might not be necessary, what do you think is actually necessary?
Let's get it straight. Let me start reacting by asking you a question. Have people stopped dying? Have human beings stopped dying? Have human beings stopped dying?
No, they have not stopped dying, but the rates of which we had people die is the issue.
Yeah, wait. Let me ask you a follow-up question. Human beings have been dying before COVID-19.
Yes,
and human beings will die. Have you taken pains to look at death rates in those countries you are talking about for the past 20 years? Have you studied it? Death rates in each of those countries in a year. How many people die in those countries from past 50 years or past 20 years before the advent of COVID-19? Then now COVID-19 era. How many people are dying? Have you found out the percentages? Have people stopped dying? People have not stopped dying. People will still continue to die even after COVID-19. Let's take an example, for example.
Perhaps, Professor, the question that I just to moderate.
The rates of the deaths is what is scary.
There is a lot of something about death that you may not understand. What you see? Have you taken pains to visit any of those hospitals where they pronounce hundreds of deaths and you see hundreds of deaths?
Okay.
Now, I challenged my agency. Just let me get it clear. I challenged my country when the first person died of COVID-19. They announced it. He just died of COVID-19. And I made a statement on social media. I said, let them give me that dead body. And I will call scientists. There are pathologists. There are other different classes. Let's carry out autopsy and show me what is inside that you classify as COVID-19. Show me what is COVID-19. And the reaction I got after 2 days is that whoever dies from COVID-19 will not be released to the parents or to the family for burial. Are you getting it?
I'm getting it.
That closes a chapter because they don't want us to expose that fact that up till now, with the weight of scientists in America and across the world, nobody, no scientist has been able to discover what has been classified as COVID from symptoms of giving. And if you track it health-wise, then you will arrive at 2 components. Then I have said those components, let's use it as a guideline. And I wrote America president. I want you to believe, I want you to get this. I wrote Trump one-on-one at the instance of somebody who called, who said the military officer is the medical of the United States of America. I watched your video. I want you to write America president. I want you to write my president, use DHL. And I followed and I wrote him. The thing is this, you are accusing China, but look inward first. From the positive and the dead you have you been able to find anything that you will name COVID? Because we were giving that name. You were asking me of the name. I don't have that responsibility to say whether COVID is a wrong language or a wrong terms or not, because I did not generate it. Somebody derived it, COVID-19, and a lot of persons have been translating it differently. Some will tell you the first.
Prof, my question still is,
what is it?
My question still is there a disease out there? If let's say it's not COVID or the name they manufacture, is there anything there that you think is out there that is dangerous or ought to be careful about, that is killing people at the rates, even though you're saying that? I don't want to believe that the rates of the deaths, they might not be there, but I don't think, there might be an exaggeration, but I think there is something out there. Or unless you want to tell me, we want to be educated, that's why we're here. My question is there a disease out there that we ought to be careful about? And what is it?
Has there not been disease with humans? Have people not been dying of various diseases? Then two, I have asked you, find out.
Professor.
Now find out whether there is heavy metal infection in any person that has become.
Prof, sorry, you're not helping me.
No, Professor.
I want you to help me.
Yeah.
Let me intervene here because I understand the ambassador's question this way.
Yes.
We know that there have been deaths.
Yes.
We know that the coronavirus or coronaviruses have been with us. But the World Health Organization, after what happened in Wuhan, having looked at its impact on the world, took the view that this coronavirus is unique and different from the other coronaviruses, and that this virus therefore deserves to be characterized as COVID-19, and that this particular coronavirus compromises the respiratory system and affects the lungs, and that it is very virulent, and that it is a coronavirus which is different from coronaviruses hitherto unseen in the world. I understand the good ambassador to be asking, is it the case that this is a unique coronavirus hitherto unseen and hitherto unidentified, and therefore deserving unique attention, not only from the medical profession, but the general populace? Ambassador, do I capture your concerns?
Just fear everybody's.
Technology is also compromised, but I hope, Professor, did you get my intervention?
Yes. Hello.
Did you get my intervention there?
No, I didn't get your intervention.
No, but let me just summarize it now, very quickly, in less than a minute. What I understand, the ambassador, that the World Health Organization, having observed what happened in Wuhan, recognized that coronaviruses exist, but that this particular version of the coronavirus, which they christened COVID-19 is unique, is virulent, it compromises the respiratory system, and it leads to very quick death. And the question being posed, therefore, is it unique? Has it been unseen hitherto? It defies current modes of treatment, and therefore we ought to approach it differently.
Number one, coronavirus is not new. I have mentioned just now that there is patent right for coronavirus, and it's old, and it comes in different form based on what desire the person who is producing it wants to achieve. That's a virus. So you can modify it, which they classified as mutation. Non-living things cannot mutate, but you can change what you are preparing. Let me give an example. There is what we call Gamma 20. There is what we call address 40. They are chemicals used by cocoa farmers. Address 40 is more harsh when you compare the function to that of Gamma 20. But both of them are virus because they living thing and kills that to kill rats. If they kill rats, most of them does not kill the human beings inside the house because the rat can even take particles of it and drop it to your food and you eat it because of differences in DNA and cell reaction. So coronavirus is a man-made chemical substance and is being modified to achieve basic objectives. I will pull you back a little bit. There have been stories of coronavirus, like they mentioned it, they said this one is a unique one. Fine, I agree, it's a unique one because it's based on the interest of who is producing it and what he wants to achieve with it. So they produce it in that line to get that purpose achieved. So that is what brings in variations in life. It's not that they undergo mutation. Virus cannot undergo mutation. When they enter the body, what they do is they disintegrate and becomes more in number and attacks cells around. And as they are attacking cells, the cells react. And it is the reaction of the cell when poisonous substance enters the body that commands to produce what we call
It's certainly a network problem.
Professor, I think you've made the point. Let us widen the debate a little. And
okay.
Ambassador will come back to that particular issue because
I'm not going to that issue. I'm not going to issue.
No, you keep.
So
keep,
the cause
keep
they are
thoughts.
talking about that the squeezing and the blocking of the cell and the system again.
Professor is very animated on this one.
Chairman, I just want to give an information. You know,
Please.
because what I'm saying is that if we're here on this platform, I believe that the topic was war against COVID-19 in Africa. What can we do differently to win the war? So that's why I have been hammering on the question.
What we can do?
There COVID-19 at all. And if we cannot, based on what he's saying, establish the fact there is a fight, there is no, this whole debate is going to be lopsided because Prof is making us understand if he's going to be straight with me on my question to tell us, is there a COVID-19? If there is no COVID-19, there is no war. What can we do differently to win the war or the battle? It means there is no battle, which is what I'm hearing him say. So if that's the truth, so what do we go from here? I know there is something out there, whether it's real or not real, whether it's COVID-19 or not, that I believe has been killing people in a rate that death has never occurred in the whole world. Everybody's saying it's given. So if we cannot establish that it's there, then talking about the war, how to mitigate it becomes a problem. But you know that it's a problem, then the solution comes. If I said I have malaria, then I'll start looking for solution for malaria. But if I cannot identify or diagnose what I'm suffering from, headache or malaria or just a chest pain, giving the medication will be very difficult. So going forward on this, and I personally am handicapped.
No, let me intervene in this because, and then I'll widen the debate. In fact, I'll hear the professor actually admitting that there is something by whatever name called, we now call it COVID-19. And I hope I understand him correctly. He's also appearing to be suggesting that this is something that has been made by somebody to achieve a particular aim. It is therefore with us. The question that we want to do differently, having acknowledged that it is there, what can we do differently? And I would want to hear voices that we have not heard before, then we can come back later. Let's hear.
Let's hear Engineer Larry, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, please get into the debate.
Okay, good evening, everyone. All protocols duly observed. I'm an engineer, I'm not a medical person. And we've digested so much information from the media to the extent that some of us can now even talk like a medical personnel regarding COVID-19. As someone who is leading technology revolution, currently trying to work on a respiratory ventilator. Then comes the question that Prof was trying to answer, and somehow it looks like some people still want to admit to the fact that COVID-19 doesn't really exist. For me, being a student of history, I've had this information about COVID-19 years before this year. I've heard much about the weapon of COVID-19 as a tool, a HARP. The person that told me called it HARP, H-A-R-P. And he said there will be a weapon of mass destruction which the global elite are trying to use to reduce population in Africa. Unfortunately, it gave me descriptions of when these things will be launched and what to watch out for. And this made me to look out for Illuminati game cards on the internet. And on Illuminati game cards, these cards were published as far back as 70s and 80s. They made mention of an event that will bring us into a quarantine condition. In fact, I began to follow the Illuminati game cards about 10 years ago. And this is the gospel truth. These game cards, they are like leading floodlight to a lot of things happening around us, which obviously lend support to what Prof is saying. Somebody somewhere, a group of people somewhere, actually developed something called coronavirus and launched it for the purpose of whatsoever they want to achieve. And they still have their plans going ahead, life after COVID-19, what they want to achieve. These game cards are there on the internet. In fact, these people have the effrontery and the audacity to put this thing before us. What they are doing, they are not hiding it. They put it there in the public domain, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and we should watch out for them, and nobody is stopping them. We have heard from secret propaganda news that apart from the one that was released in Wuhan, there are 2 other versions of COVID-19 that have been released. I lean more to Prof's side that this is not natural thing. Somebody cultured this, and somebody is spreading it. But in Africa, what can we do? It has come to hit us now. And we have a lot of panacea. People have developed drugs and all this and everything. Now, these same elites, these globalists, they have even made us to realize that even if we have the power like gods to cage COVID-19 in 2020, it will come back at us again in few years to come. Which means Africa must prepare.
Yeah.
We have to prepare, because even when it dampens a little now, these guys are not relenting. They are bringing it back again. They will go back to the lab and culture a more terrible, devastating disease and bring to Africa. Then at that time, AIDS will be scarce from Africa. Africa must stand united to fight this terrible disease. They are bringing it. It's coming. Let me pause here so that other people can also speak.
In fact, engineer, you have paused when I wanted to intervene. I think you've made a very critical point. What I hear you to be saying is that this, and I'm not using your word, that this could be biological warfare. And
Yes, sir.
it then begs the question, what must Africa do going forward if we go by your thesis that is not only COVID-19 that is out there, that there are two other versions and other versions may be coming along? What then in practical terms, and Ambassador, I'm also alive to your earlier question, what can we do in practical terms in order, number one, to protect ourselves from the ongoing onslaught and other onslaughts that will be coming our way in the foreseeable future? Let's hear other interventions from those who have not spoken thus far. Mazi, you can see somebody there who has not spoken, who was...
Yeah, let me see.
Dr. Ngile?
She has to unmute her phone. She's on. She has to unmute her. Let me.
Ambassador, could you come in? Because you raised a number of questions. I hope the engineer has answered some of the questions. Can you just come in and weigh in on some of the things that have been said?
Chairman, thank you. Like I said, I'm still totally what engineer said. I have read a lot of things, and we believe there is something out there conjured by some selfish people for their selfish reason. And whatever it is dangerous. We cannot take it for granted. We can't run around it. But like I said, I am constrained. My theory is that for you to solve a problem, for you to have a solution, you must define the problem. And so far, I don't think we're able to define the problem. Whether it's a chemical weapon, whether it's a whatever conspiracy, we need the scientists. We need the medical people in the field to be able to, people like Prof. Cyril, to help us, help the world, or maybe help us, the Africa. The thing is here, maybe if they can subject somebody or someone, or even one of the cops that they claim that this is a COVID story or death, for us to identify. Chairman, until it's identified, there is no way in the world we can provide any solution. If you don't know what the problem is, whether it's a malaria, whether it's a COVID, what are we gonna do? So my anger and my desire is that people, Prof and his team, should probably need to come back to us if they are able to trace, because I believe there is something out there. I believe that whatever it is dangerous. I believe that some people manufactured it, or I'm not 100%, but the 90% to 99% based on information and research is that some people, for some selfish and wicked reason, have come up with something to depopulate the world. I don't think that there is a doubt about that. The issue is, what is this that will release to us? Whatever it is has been released, and they're not taking it back, and they don't have capacity to take it back. The issue is to analyze what it is. When we analyze what it is, also the medical people will still be able to help us with a cure. Because we can't be cured in isolation without knowing what we're curing. But for now, me, I am personally using my common sense I'm not mingling as I'm supposed to. I am personally trying to stay away from crowd and all that. I am actually afraid. I'm sorry to use the word, the thing is scary out there because I've seen people, I don't know whether they died of COVID or they died of whatever. I believe people are dying in more numbers than that died in the past. I don't have the statistics of what is the death rate in America or Europe, like Prof asked me. And I don't have to know, but what I do know is there's dead bodies that we saw they are throwing out there. And I don't think that we have had such a massive death rate in anywhere in the world. So there is something. So maybe Professor Sorio and his colleagues could help us find out exactly what it is. Because Africa cannot provide solutions. What is Africa? What is the solution we're going to provide? Is it for malaria? Or is it for what? We don't know what it is. So until we know what it is, it will be difficult. And we need people like Professor Cyril to help us. That's my take on this thing. And until then, I'm just being careful. I'm using my common sense to be careful.
Professor, before you answer, I want to ask a very pointed question because we also have limited time. The ambassador has said, and whether she agrees with me or not, let her hold her peace. She is angry, she is anxious, she is frustrated, just like all of us. and the question, the reason why she is, and she's asking a very pointed question, until the day we define what the problem is, we cannot have an answer for it. And she's posing the question, which I also pose to you, whatever it is that is out there, which has locked the entire continent down, that thing requires attention in a very practical way. I hear her to be saying, what are the African scientists doing, therefore, in order to have a common approach? And I'm using the word common very loosely because even within Africa, there are certain specificities that would be unique to Senegal, which are not unique to Ethiopia. But I'm using the word very loosely in that regard. What are those specificities? Number two, we know that Africa has our own CDCs, 5 of them under the aegis of the AU. We also know that countries have their own specific research institutions. What is being done in a coordinated way to ensure that we have approaches that are specific to the countries and to the environments within Africa so that we are not in this constant state of lamentation that the WHO is doing this, that the Chinese are doing this. Just today, somebody has given me something which he says is a cure, is a prevention of for COVID from China. I can't read what is there, so I will not take it. It's called Linhua Genhua Jionang. I don't know what the hell that thing is. And Africa is going to be given those things. And we are going to be asked to take them. So I would want you, as we round down, let us be specific in terms of being faithful to the question at hand.
Before Professor Cyril, hold on, before Professor Cyril will respond, I need to say something here. I listened to Professor Cyril, and his frustration, from my understanding, is that the authorities are not allowing them to carry out autopsy on patients or on the victims. Okay, they are not allowing them to carry out autopsy everywhere in the world, and it appears to be the same thing. So how do you now find out what is actually wrong with the person when you are not allowed to carry out autopsy? This is the issue. This is the frustration.
Hello.
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 Yeah.
We have Dr. Grace there. Dr. Grace.
Okay.
Sorry, I've had some complexities with this technology. but I've been following. My microphone was having problems, so I'm using my phone. But I really wanted to come in, particularly in terms of addressing the question of what can we do. What can we do given this situation? We know that there are all the theories and accepting what it's called and what is not called. But now that it's here with us, going forward, what can we do? I think that was the question that the chair and many of us raised for the earlier speakers. What can we do differently? I think what we can do differently is what we do know, that we are not trading with each other. How can we then start trading with each other? We do know that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will now kick off maybe sometime next year. But having known that this has happened, we really need to reflect, what can we do? How can we reorganize ourselves strategically and try and give some advice, particularly with respect to health, and rearrange the sectors that have been ignored by our leaders? I think, positively speaking, there's something we can do differently. And there are areas of entry that we need to relook into. And I've been speaking with the chair and I think Mr. Maza about how do we strategically engage ourselves with the secretariat that has been formed. How do we get an entry point through the African Union so that whatever we are saying is institutionalized? I know we are all scholars and thinkers, and we can debate about the name, about whether it's here or not, but it is here, and our people are poor. And this pandemic has worsened the situation of poverty in the continent. So really, in light of the fact that we had challenges, and we do have challenges, not just globally, but also trading amongst ourselves, what is it that we can do differently, particularly given this environment? What are the opportunities? I know the negative issues are there. Countries are sensitive. Some are hiding statistics. Some are not allowing for autopsy to take place. But having said all this, we can't lose sight of what we call in Kenya, East Africa, the Wananchi, the people who are dying of other diseases, and this has just added or worsened the whole situation. So my recommendation in terms of what we can do differently is really to come up with some strategies and say, how do we collaborate, particularly using this platform? How do you ensure that we are talking differently or advising organizations that have already been established? And I have in mind here the Secretariat, the Free Trade Secretariat that is going to be based in Accra or is based in Accra. I have in mind the Economic Commission for Africa that is also doing a lot of work in this area. I have in mind the African Union. I have in mind the regional economic communities. I think this is something that we can do differently. What we can also do differently is to follow particularly institutions like the African Development Bank that are holding e-dialogue and having very topical issues. 2 weeks ago, I attended one meeting that was participants were from former ministers of finance, former governors of the bank, looking at the economic policies, how our country is going to realign themselves, particularly with respect to re-strategizing, given the situation as it were. How about agriculture and the food security issues? Tomorrow, we are having a big talk again, led by the African Development Institute, on how we are going to look at the value chains along the agricultural lines so that we can trade with each other around our countries. And lastly, even as we know that our heads of state are handicapped, they're having their regional meetings. I think last week we had the East African leaders speaking to each other. Who is following up on what they're saying? And is it that what they're saying is doable? These are some thoughts, but I just want to re-emphasize that as scholars, as very important people and a very important forum that we're having, let us think and say, what are the opportunities? We know the negatives are there. We know there are negatives that have been with us for long. But if we spend so much time trying to, say whether it's there or not, we'll miss the boat. So positively, again, Chair, with your permission, let's think positively and say, what are the opportunities? If this free trade, kicking off of the free trade agreement has been postponed, what are the areas that can move even this postponement? What difference can we make, particularly using this platform? Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mazi, I hear the professor and ambassador and the good doctor, what I hear it being said, and the engineer, is that there is something out there. That thing has been christened the COVID-19 by the World Health Organization and embraced as such by the international community. It has impact in our health sectors. It has impact in our economic sectors. It has impact in our social way of doing things. Going forward, therefore, in the face of this pandemic, what is it that we can do differently to mitigate its negative impact? And we are being told that there are things that can be done, which must be a multi-dimensional approach. That is what I hear the good doctor to be saying. I would want to hear what other views there are regarding that contribution.
Yes. Well, sir, I want to quickly react to Doctor's statement. Science is practical and health issues.
Proceed.
You don't attend to health issues on proxy. You must know what you are targeting. COVID does not exist. I have said it. If you want to hear, COVID does not exist. Because if it exists, all the drama that we have been watching from one country to another, and at the end of the day, you see people who are positive, plus or minus intervention, they are discharged. Then for those who are giving intervention, we have discovered that the intervention given treats towards malaria. And the same World Health Organization has come out to say there is no possibility that COVID-19 will be cured, that humans will have to adjust to it. So if humans will have to adjust to it and it's killing in millions, then are you telling me that there is possibility that in few months' time that everybody would die? It's not possible. And if you look at countries who are opening up now, they have discovered that the more there is lockdown, the more the numbers are even increasing. So let everybody go out and let's see what is killing people. I think if I align with the fear is what is killing people. The fear is what is keeping all of us inside. So the only thing we can do in Africa that will be new is what we are doing here in Nigeria, particularly myself and my team, trying to convince people to overcome fear and trying to convince the government, open up the countries so that people can engage in agriculture, people can engage in trading, people can engage in interactions with each other. Scientists will have opportunity to go to the lab. If I am not giving a dead body and somebody that is positive, I knew what it took me to challenge them until one of their public press briefs, World Health Organization now said what they do, the laboratory analysis they do is PCR. PCR is polymerase chain reaction, and it's for organisms. So these are components we are put together. Nobody should be, it's fear that is keeping everybody. And what people are dying of now, fear, anxiety, and hunger. Everybody knows that. There is no outside until somebody shows me what is COVID. Prof, there is no COVID outside. What we can do differently is this. I have mentioned it. We must encourage all countries to open up. Let people come out. When people now come out and they start dying in the street, then we will have opportunity to now get one dead body. Then we'll take the dead body to the lab. Then we will know what is new. America has said over 90% of cases they had before, after another test, that all of them were proof that whatever condition they have were pre-existing health conditions. There is nothing like COVID. No COVID anywhere. From all genetic parameters they have given, it does not exist until we see a dead body and we bring out COVID inside. COVID does not exist.
I have a question for Prof.
Ambassador is living
I have a question for Prof.
Professor, we have had you.
Yeah.
Professor, we have had you. Ambassador.
Yes.
Ambassador, I think that the professor has now come out very clearly, whether we agree with him or not is a different debate. But the reality is that there is something out there.
Chairman, thank you for.
I have a question.
We want to dovetail the discussion.
Okay. Let me respond to.
Is that
I think
the
Dr.
ambassador or the engineer?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't know. Engineer, do you have the floor? So go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Please
It's just a question for Prof.
Yes.
So my question is, Prof, the numbers of people dying, it's not statistics. These are human beings.
Yes.
And we have people who are close to us who have died. And I don't think Nigerian government is totally barricading any autopsy to be carried out, sincerely speaking. Because if we as ESGADIA, if we push for that to be done, that we want just a sample, any of the body that has been coined to be COVID-19 dead body kind of, that if we push it, the government will surely release it if they are not hiding anything. But I cannot agree to that fact that they should just allow people to go to the public, and until we see people dying in numbers, then we'll now come and do lab research to do things.
Let me help you because of time. The first person that died in Nigeria was classified to have died of COVID-19. After my first video, which maybe some of you have watched, the uncle of that person that died, the man that died left his place in UK and he went for medical check, condition, pre-existing health condition, pancreatic cancer and diabetes. And that man died, and they said it was COVID. So there's no other disease that's killing people. I have continued to ask that question. That's somebody, and they seized the dead body. But I challenged the government. I said, no, don't seize the dead body. They brought the dead body to a mosque. After prayer, they took it back. Up to now is with them. I don't have the power. Remember, you must give me the dead body. I don't have that power. France and Greece are open up. Only within 24 hours, 15 million people visited different beaches to bath, to have fun, to play, to have sunbathe. Have all of them died in Greece and France? Are people not opening up everywhere? I am in a state in Nigeria, Kogi State presently, and here there is no one single record of even positive, talk less of death. And why? Because they have not allowed SCDC in, they have not allowed World Health Organization in. They have not allowed marketers into their state. So when marketers don't even enter your state, you don't see that. I have probed a picture. The youngest boy that was published to have died of COVID in UK. I called somebody in UK. I said, investigate that child for me. The child must have family. Few days later, that same boy that COVID killed died 2017 out of suicide. So is suicide COVID-19? Since when has suicide become COVID-19? Then they show pictures of dead body. I have screened one of the pictures and I discovered that they did not cover one of the leg, and that leg was plastic. Since when has human being become plastic? There are a lot of picture work. Just
thank you very much. I think we now have
with our
Professor.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, sir.
Let us. Albert, I'm seeing your comment there. Are you with us? Albert?
Yes, Prof. Yeah, I'm with you, Prof.
Can you just make the statement for general benefit, because we don't have much time now? Can you just make the statement you wanted to make, please?
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and all protocols
Albert?
duly observed. Yes, Prof, I can hear you. Good evening, everyone, and all protocols duly observed. My take is that
we've lost you.
there is some public, and I know Madagascar, they came up with, their organic that cures COVID-19 and some other persons. I do not believe that these are cure for COVID-19.
Good.
Why? Because you must, first of all, what is the basis of the testing? What is the criteria of this testing of this COVID-19? It just came into Africa, sometime this year. What are the testing kits that is being used? How do you know that someone is positive? How many autopsies have we carried out? Have we really identified that the people dying, they are actually dying of COVID-19 in Nigeria and in Africa? Then if we have studied this virus and we have checked to know how this virus deals with the human body, then we cannot start looking at solutions. You don't come up with, some ingredients that boost human immunity like vitamin C and the rest of them, because you know that if your immune system is strong, you would not be prone to this virus. Then you come out to say, we have the solution, we have the cure. It doesn't work like that. We have to be opened. Our leaders have to be opened. If it means they've tested some persons and these persons are positive, now let the scientists come in and check these people also, study this virus. Let's forget about what America is doing. Let's forget about what WHO is saying. Let us as Africans protect ourselves. Let's study this virus. Is it actually in this continent? People dying, the record of death, is it actually from COVID-19? Or these people have other illnesses they've been struggling with over the years, and maybe because they are being locked inside right now, they cannot have enough vitamin D and all that. They are anxious, and this is leading to death. Because I have spoken with one of the CMDs in one of the teaching hospitals in Nigeria, precisely in the southern part of Nigeria, and he told me in confidence, he said the state governor is not allowing them to carry out tests because he doesn't want the figures to keep going up. And I asked the doctor, I said, now doctor, what tests are you people actually carrying out? He told me, he said, simply, when you come in, they treat you for malaria. And that's what I've been seeing on the social media, because he is our family doctor. He's a consultant. He's a big man. So we're not really getting the truth. I want African leaders to come out and be truthful. It's not a time to make monies for themselves. It's a time to save the continent. It's a time to save the African people. That is my take, Prof.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think, Mazi, you have something to say. You've kept silent for quite some time.
Yes, I haven't listened to all the speakers. I have something that I've been able to deduce from the speeches so far. Yes, that is there COVID-19, which is coronavirus disease. 2019, discovered. That's why it's codenamed COVID-19, coronavirus disease 19. Now, from what Professor Cyril has been saying, and from all these submissions so far, both on videos and other, I don't think what he's saying, there's something out there actually killing people. But there's this conspiracy among the leaders and the propagators of this COVID-19 to ensure that the truth is not revealed. Now, normally, why is it that it is only in this COVID-19 that people are not allowed to carry out autopsy? Just this evening, I was told by a friend who is also a member of ESGADIA that the government has asked that whoever is treated should not come out and say what medicine they are giving. I don't know how far that is true.
It's true.
So there is this conspiracy, you know, among the leaders in the world, not just Africa. So and how do we get there? I think this is what, you know, the platform, we can use this platform for. How do we get them to at least submit one dead body for the scientists to carry out autopsy? Because it is only when autopsy is carried out that they will be able to tell the whole world their findings. So, but if Professor Cyril told me he's been getting calls from Europe, from the US, threatening him, there are quite a number of, you know, people, you know, giving the same testimony on how they will receive calls to say, stay out of this. So if we continue to live this way, I don't know what else, what solution, because we must first of all understand what is COVID-19. Okay? Now, Prof mentioned about mercury infection, and he said we should go and carry out our own search. Google it, study it, and then marry it with Olamedia pneumonia, something like that. So
chlamydia.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of this is from his own finding, from his own research. He's not been allowed any dead body, okay, to look at any dead body, or to even near any dead body. And this will tell you the dead bodies are not going to be released to the family of the victim, I mean of the dead. So this is a very serious situation that we must, you know, find a way to address it. If we're going to use our platform to write to the WHO, to write to the government, to write to the AU, to say, look, this is not right.
Yeah.
If we have issues, we should be able to, okay, how do you find a solution? How do we find a solution, sir?
So what you don't know.
How do you find a solution when you cannot carry out autopsy? Why is it that it is now COVID-19 that people are not allowed to carry out autopsy? You're allowed to carry out autopsy before now. So why is that it's this COVID-19? And every death now is COVID-19.
Yes.
Every death, whether a person die of stroke or die of anything, it is COVID-19. So this is a serious issue that we must address. There's so much conspiracy, and Africa must alienate themselves from the world powers, those that have been oppressing us. Our leaders can't be part of this. They should not be part of this. It is sad that we begin to see our leaders in this light. So that's my contribution. So if we must find a solution, let us use this platform to say, look, release dead bodies. Let the scientists that we have in Africa carry out autopsies on them, so that we'll be able to at least, you know, pin it to a particular to some cause.
Now, thank you. We must now conclude. So what I'll do, we want to be very practical. Remember, the question we posed was, what can we do differently? And I think we'll only be doing justice to that particular conversation if at the end of the conversation, whether we are right or wrong, but we will have teased out practical things that can be done. And those practical views must be made on the basis of certain reality. That whether we agree that there is COVID-19 or we don't agree, there is something out there, by whatever name called, which appears to be causing death And it is unfortunate that after the advent of COVID-19, we are not being told who is dying of tuberculosis or cancer or other things. So it would appear as if all other diseases have taken leave. It is only COVID-19 that is killing people. But we know that some of these people who are succumbing to COVID-19 also have underlying causes, which may be are the reasons why their immunity is compromised. Knowing that as we do, what are the practical issues that each one of us in 30 seconds can suggest, which can be put on the table for purposes of future interaction? We have taken all those arguments into consideration. Professor, you will speak last. This is the order in which that contribution will be made. The engineer will speak first. The engineer will speak first for 30 seconds. Dr. Grace will speak second. Albert will speak next. Obina will speak, and then we'll have the good engineer, and then the ambassador, and then professor. That will take us about 2.5 minutes, and then we conclude. Proceed.
Okay, I think I have the permission to speak.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Practical things to be done differently.
Practical thing to be done differently on the 30 seconds. Like I said, we use ESGADIA as a platform to request for autopsy to be done on these bodies, and let our research institutions, the medical research institutions, collaborate to conduct these studies, and let ESGADIA monitor it and get the report. From there, we can take it further. That's my submission, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, Grace here.
Yes, please.
Yes, practical things that we can do within this plan. We need to find how to get an entry point, particularly to the Union, so that whatever we are saying is also heard within the African Union. This is mainly, why do I say this? It's because we do have already a continental strategy that was endorsed by Africa's health ministers in February and is championed by the AU. So we need to clearly understand what is in that document and move forward in terms of ensuring that we are coordinating our efforts, collaborating with the relevant institutions, and also communicating, working with unity to win the war against COVID-19.
Thank you.
Okay,
Albert?
my take, just like the last speaker said, is all the presidents in Africa, they have to work in one voice, And I believe if ESGADIA can detail a letter to AU, because I believe AU represents the whole bodies, the whole countries in Africa, to give them a structure of how this will be done, it's very important. Otherwise, we're already in deep recession, and the next thing that is coming is serious famine if care is not taken. So the presidents of African nations have to be honest about this, and we have to tackle this in the best and most cheapest way. We don't have to spend the resources we do not have, we don't even know what it is. This is my take.
Thank you. Ambassador?
Well, good evening, everyone. It's very constraining making this point because I agree with what everybody said that we need to get our voice heard. But my question and my concern is, do we have a platform? If you want to require for an autopsy to be done, we must align ourselves with a body or an institution in order to carry out that autopsy. Let's take, for example, we write the AU or whoever we write, and they now concede giving us the opportunity for that to be done. Can Professor Cyril and his team, or do we must align with an institution to be able to carry out? I'm willing to do it. That is one. Secondly, the COVID-19 has exposed us, our health institution, because we're talking about COVID, so I'm going to restrict myself to health, has exposed the inadequacy and the lapses in our institution. So I believe that this is a time to strengthen our health institution. However we want to do that, we must make that voice heard. Also, COVID-19 has exposed the level of hunger in the continent, and that takes me back to what Dr. Grace mentioned. This is a time for us to strengthen our economy, strengthen the agriculture, because, for example, in Nigeria, we're broke. Our only source of this thing is oil. Oil is dead. So the last frontier as far as the continent is concerned is agriculture. So we as a platform, we have to know how to integrate ourselves. I have an entry point into this African free trade agreements and see how we can help the continent and help our people to be self-sufficient. Food security is very key, and we cannot ignore that. Thank you.
Mas Yobina.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I want to align with what Abbas, what I said before, and then what Ambassador Noye just said. Yes, going forward, we must look at areas that we can get ourselves out of the mess that we're already in as a result of this pandemic. This COVID-19 has actually exposed, like she said, has exposed Africa. We can't feed ourselves, we don't have enough. So we must begin to look at the area of agriculture seriously. Mechanized farming, it is important. We must look at other areas that we can grow our economy. Because our economy as it is chartered. We have to build from scratch. Nigeria, for example, they have lost, the cash cow, the means of livelihood, the means of forest for the economy of Nigeria is oil. And this oil is, is no more as it is. The thing has crashed, and these are things that we have been singing, some of us have been singing, that we need to diversify. So we have to look at agriculture, we have to look at our mines, our various mines. They are not just there as monuments. We must begin to think of harnessing them, okay? And the areas of, and then we have also seen that artificial intelligence, for example, has helped in the fight against COVID-19 in the developed world. So what are we doing about artificial intelligence? Okay, and robotics, what are we doing in that aspect? We must begin to identify those who are experts in these areas and get them to school our children through those programs. So education is very important at this point. So in all of this, we need to actually walk our way through to
Thank you.
To the next to the post-pandemic era.
And thank you very much, Professor. Remember, we are now going into the things that we can do differently, and I think you will have the last word, being the more schooled in this particular area than we are. But our curiosity is nevertheless very useful because we represent the man and woman in the street. Professor.
Yes, thank you very much. My submissions are simple and straightforward. One, as a body, we must write African leaders. Somebody has suggested before.
We'll write African leaders, and we have to address World Health Organization, CDC, and NCDC to furnish us with information.
Having network problem.
Of what COVID-19 is. Analysis that leads to somebody being positive for COVID-19. Then, after that, Prof. there is need to remind African leaders that should happen, organize ourselves as Africans. Then our children that are being driven into streets in countries like China and everywhere, because there is a disease that they cannot even identify, we have a home and we have opportunity to serve their continent, and we will be comfortable, and economic-wise will be achievable. So we must write to find out, let them address us, let African Union address us. Let them ask World Health Organization what they did and what was produced and whether it's killing people or not. And let them give us bodies so that we can experiment, check in the lab whether there's COVID-19 or not. For now, COVID-19 is a scam, or let's prove otherwise. That's my submission.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think we have had a conversation, and the depth of it can only be as much as time allows. I'll not pretend to summarize, but we must remember that what our conversation was about, it was framed on the assumption, of course, the professor will have something to say about it, not now, that there is something out there called COVID-19. And that thing has compromised our health system. That thing has redefined the way we behave and conduct our affairs. And almost all governments across the continent of Africa have responded to it differently, including measures such as lockdowns, measures such as physical distancing. And of course, we have had several establishments close, schools, universities, hotels, and churches, and other places of worship. And the question we pose to ourselves, what is it that we can do differently, which also presupposed that thus far we have had a one-size-fits-all, which some of us have argued that is a little bit Eurocentric and Americocentric. And what is it that we can do? And what I've heard from this conversation, number one, and I'm not pretending to summarize, is one, that having recognized this reality, it is important that Africans collaborate a lot more than we have collaborated thus far, and that professionals should do this. That is the medical professionals and those who are in the research sector, so that we can have opportunity for establishing what it is that is affecting us. Number two, that we also ought to recognize that this has had a devastating economic effect in our countries, and that therefore we should trade within ourselves a little more. Number three, that countries that have hitherto depended on single products such as Nigeria, and we are simply giving Nigeria as an example, we ought to strengthen agriculture and inter-African trade. And that we ought, number four, to look at the economic intervention that we'll make going forward, and that we ought to identify how we are going to look at this. Also subsumed as number five, that we ought to collaborate in the area of research, so that interventions and such as what we have seen with what is called COVID organic in Madagascar should be encouraged, not as a cure in and of itself, but as an intervention that can possibly ameliorate the effects of this particular condition. Those are some of the things that I've teased out, but I want to believe that Maziobina was taking notes, and that what we want to do so that we are not just a talking shop. And this organization will therefore generate a letter, which letter will capture the essence of what we have talked about, will be directed to the heads of the regional bodies such as ECOWAS, SADC, African Development Bank, and the AU, for whatever it's worth, so that we have documented our recommendations. And we are saying that we are going to couch that letter in a manner that will open the eyes of those we are addressing rather than inflame their anger. So our duty is to be positive in our intervention, so that our intervention is practical, realistic, and one that even if you disagree with, you disagree with in an agreeable fashion. I hope that that captures the essence of this conversation, and that this is one of the many series of conversations that we'll have, not only on COVID, but other critical issues going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is proper that we bring this conversation to an end, unless somebody has something that is very important. Lawrence Onoche, to everyone. Not Lawrence, are you in the assembly?
I'm very much, I'm here.
You have something that is burning you. Don't burn. Can you raise it, because it appears to be a burning issue?
Okay, I think, in 30 seconds, for me, one of the most resonating points in this meeting is the urgent and very serious need for a Pan-African consciousness. I think it's time we begin to look inwards. That's what I see in all this. It's time we begin to believe more in ourselves. And I think that ESGADIA should also be used as a platform to strongly promote that Pan-African consciousness using every available medium until we break out of that dependency of seeking validation and seeking permission from the colonial master. There are certain realms that we cannot operate in. Even if we come up with a cure, I tell you, Prof, the people that will discredit it the most will be Africans. So I think that there is a strong need to promote it and to use every available means to disseminate this consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think on that note, Lawrence, you pretty much captured the essence of this. In fact, your intervention is as timely as time can be, because what you've done is to bring us back to the ground. What can we do differently? And on that note, I don't want to spoil it. If I go further, I'll only be spoiling it. Have a good evening in Western Africa, good night in Eastern Africa, and whatever time it is in your part of the world. Let us convene again sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Chairman.
God bless you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye to Ambassador, to Prof, to Mazi. Bye-bye, everyone. Love you all.
Make sure you don't rise up before, I'm told that sometimes you can rise up and you only had a good talk and you're wearing... Okay, we are now on.
Okay, Prof.
Okay, have a